Chapter 1436. Every Second. Babulu was besieged by Gao Chongkong and Lancelot, and he had no time to stop the attack launched by Zhang Yi and Huahua. A fierce look flashed in his eyes. At the moment when the attack was about to reach his body, the ability of space replacement was immediately activated, and it was Lancelot who replaced his position. But after being replaced, there was no surprise in Lancelot's eyes, and as if he had been prepared, his body quickly moved to the side to avoid it. Zhang Yi and Huahua's attack missed, but a smile rose at the corner of his mouth. As the plan said, he will have to use his ability to avoid our joint attack. But in this way, he will have at least 5 seconds of ability cooling time. Zhang Yi had discussed all this with Gao Chongkong and Lancelot in advance. Babulu has the ability of time, and so does Zhang Yi. 2 seconds ago, Zhang Yi predicted all of Babula's actions. Between aliens of the same attribute, the comparison is who has stronger ability and who has better control over the ability. Babula's advantage over others was not obvious to Zhang Yi. Click. Zhang Yi skillfully changed the bullet, then quickly turned the gun head and locked Babula's position again. Huahua also opened his mouth wide, with colorful light flashing in his mouth, and a more powerful high-energy particle beam was being prepared. This time, Babulu could no longer use the ability of space replacement to dodge. Gao Chongkong and Lancelot rushed over from the left and right with giant swords in hand, and launched a crazy attack on him thousands of times per second. He was forced to have no extra energy to deal with the attacks of Zhang Yi and Huahua. Bang! The attacks of Zhang Yi and Huahua hit Babula's torso directly. Even if he tried his best to dodge, facing a hunter of Zhang Yi's level, unless he focused on dealing with it, he could not dodge the bullets shot from his gun. Babulu's heavy body was knocked away fiercely, and even the dark silver heavy armor on his body cracked with its click. He struggled to stabilize his body, and a dark dent suddenly appeared on his chest. This heavy armor was almost penetrated, and spiderweb-like cracks spread along the gap. He only needed to withstand a second attack, and his armor would shatter immediately. It works, keep going. Gao Chongkong and Lancelot's eyes flashed with joy. While talking excitedly, they held the giant sword and attacked Babulu again. The two Ypsilons close to the black chariot level joined forces, and the fierce offensive had almost no blind spots. The violent sword pressure almost emptied the air in the temple, turning it into a nearly vacuum state. But Babulu raised his head, revealing only a crack under the helmet, and his eyes showed no fear. The ability of space replacement was activated again. The third attack was dodged by him. In 5 seconds, Zhang Yi and the cat could only launch a joint attack twice. After all, if they wanted to snipe from a position 5 kilometers away and wanted to kill General Babulu and break the armor, Zhang Yi and Huahua had to accumulate energy instead of firing instantly. It doesn't matter. Even if our tactics can only succeed once every 5 seconds, a few more times will still cause enough damage. But the question is, what level of attack must be achieved to kill Babulu? Defeating a black chariot-level alien may be possible, but killing him is too difficult. The higher the level of the combat attribute alien, the more difficult it is to kill. But at the moment, this is indeed the best way, and the only way to see results. So the 4 of them continued to execute the tactics. When Babulu's armor was hit again, his armor broke with his click, and the armor on the left half of his chest was shattered and fell to the ground. Babulu looked at the distance outside the temple, and the battle axe in his hand was swung desperately by him to fight against Gao Chongkong and Lancelot. He was like a giant, facing the challenge of 2 insects. From the perspective of size, he was terrifying enough. If it weren't for the appearance of the alien, it would be hard to imagine that humans could defeat this creature. Even the ancient beasts could hardly compete with him. Zhang Yi pulled the bolt to reload, and the power of the void spread out from the dark vortex behind him like a dark tide, and then passed through his arm and merged into the thunder. "Go on," he said coldly. In the 20th second, Zhang Yi's bullet hit Babula's body again. This time, it went through Babula's body from front to back. Puff! The holy silver bullet cut through the sky with blood, and then hit the wall, and then fell to the ground with a clang. Gao Chongkong and Lancelot's eyes lit up immediately. Success. This was the first time Babulu was severely injured since the war began. Don't get excited first. Don't forget that he can turn back time. Zhang Yi reminded them calmly. Gao Chongkong said, I haven't forgotten, but his time reversal can only be activated once a minute. Wait until the next time he uses his ability. We have a high probability of killing him. Babula's body was shaking, and Zhang Yi's shot also had a significant impact on his body. Coupled with Huahua's joint attack, it made him even more. He was almost knocked down. But he soon stabilized his body and looked down at his chest. The bullet left a fist-sized hole, but it was a human fist, not his fist. So, it was not a fatal injury to him. He avoided the heart just now, and the bullet did not stay in the body, so this injury was acceptable. He raised the battle axe in his hand and looked at Gao Chongkong and Lancelot with a provocative look again, and even looked at the sniper in the distance outside the temple. This guy is much more difficult than I imagined. Zhang Yi frowned. In his imagination, the shot just now should be enough to force him to activate his ability and reverse his own time. After all, the bullet also carried a deadly poison in the warhead. Even if only 0.1 milligrams was needed, it could kill an adult elephant. However, the physical strength of this guy was beyond Zhang Yi's imagination. Looking at Babula's appearance, it was obvious that the injury was not serious enough. Babulu also understood that his time rewind was an extremely powerful ability, but at the same time, the interval between uses was his most dangerous time. So he would not use this ability easily unless he had no other choice. It doesn't matter, there are still 40 seconds. I really don't believe that you can withstand the continuous attack of the four of us Ypsilons for a minute without dying. Zhang Yi did not hesitate and pulled the trigger again. The holy silver bullet symbolizing death, wrapped in the power of the void, whistled towards his chest. Chapter 1437 Time Travel. At the 30th second, Babulu could no longer remain calm. Because his body had been severely injured, Zhang Yi didn't even need to take action at this time. The joint attack of Gao Chongkong and Lancelot alone made him unable to resist. He did not hesitate and decisively activated the ability of Time Rewind. The next moment, his body returned to the perfect state 1 minute ago. Even the broken armor on his body was reshaped, and everything that had just happened seemed to have never happened.
Go on.
The next 60 seconds belong to us. Zhang Yi said calmly to Gao Chongkong and Lancelot. Okay, kill him. Several people were eager, and they all thought that the next battle had completely controlled General Babulu. But no one expected that the next battle would be much more difficult than before. Facing the joint attack of the two, General Babulu went from being a little tired of parrying at the beginning to being able to deal with it with ease now. His huge battle axe was not dull at all. One person with one axe, while resisting the attack of the two, he was able to counterattack. Even Zhang Yi and Huahua's long-range attacks were blocked by him with his battle axe in time this time.
Boom.
The terrifying force hit his battle axe. Although he was knocked back hundreds of meters, General Babulu still stood firmly on the ground. His armor did not break, but a silver bullet was deeply embedded in the battle axe. This guy. Zhang Yi looked at General Babulu, and his face became solemn. He seems to have adapted to our attack method. The Three-Eyed Tribe is a backward race. But in terms of military force, they have developed to the extreme they can achieve. Almost every male will undergo military training since birth, and the best among them can become the general of the kingdom. Babulu, before becoming a capable person, he was first a top warrior who practiced martial arts for decades. Gao Chongkong, Lancelot, and even Zhang Yi and others were all younger brothers in front of him in terms of fighting. At the beginning, the joint attack of the four people did make him very uncomfortable, but he could slowly get used to the swordsmanship of Gao Chongkong and Lancelot. The swordsmanship of these two people was not bad in Babulu's eyes, but it was full of loopholes. After the pressure in front of him was reduced, it was easier to defend against the long-range attack that was clearly shot at him from the entrance of the temple. Interesting. You are worthy of being the guardian of the Holy Spirit Temple. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up with murderous intent, and the desire to win in his heart made him excited. But he did not choose to make changes. Even if Babulu began to adapt to their attack methods, even if he knew what would happen, he might not be able to change it all. After all, they were 4 people working together. The attack continued, and Babulu's pressure was reduced a lot, but his strength was not enough for him to gain the upper hand in the scene. After 40 seconds, his defense was broken again. But this time, his tactics changed. He no longer took the attacks of several people head-on, but began to choose a defensive style of play. A huge battle axe is a huge shield. For Zhang Yi and the other 4, it was simply a door. And when facing Zhang Yi's attack, as long as it was not a vital injury, he didn't even mind getting hurt. The bullet was too small for his body and could not kill him. He managed to hold on for 60 seconds. His body was riddled with holes and his weapons had gaps. But when the time was up, as long as the ability of Time Rewind was activated, all the negative problems on him would be eliminated. This guy is too hard to kill, Lancelot said, gritting his teeth. Can't we kill him in seconds, even if we 4 join forces? Gao Chongkong took a deep breath. The physique of the 3-eyed people is far stronger than that of us humans, plus his abnormal ability. It's really tricky. At this time, Zhang Yi spoke. It doesn't matter, let's try again. Do you have a way? Well, there is a way to try. This time, Zhang Yi closed the distance and chose to shoot at a position 2,000 meters outside the temple. He basically determined that General Babulu's ability range did not cover this place. At the same time, he called Yang Xinshin out of the shadow space. Seeing Yang Xinshin, everyone immediately understood Zhang Yi's plan. When facing a bug, you must use a bug to deal with it. Once the ability of the rule system is activated, it is the best way to restrain those troublesome aliens. Let us help you create opportunities. The 2 rushed over without hesitation and continued to attack Babulu. Zhang Yi said to Yang Xinshin, every time Huahua and I attack, he will choose to use his battle axe to block our attack, but at this time, in order to stabilize his body, he will not move. So your attack should be launched from behind us. Yang Xinshin nodded. I understand. Once again, Zhang Yi and Huahua's attacks were directed at Babulu, and at this time, Babulu's defense reached a near-perfect state. Gao Chongkong and Lancelot's swords could no longer touch his armor. So when Zhang Yi and Huahua's familiar attacks came, he easily raised the battle axe in his hand to block in front of him. But just after their attacks were launched, Yang Xinshin's arrow of love also followed like a shadow and shot at Babulu. The battle axe blocked Zhang Yi's bullets and Huahua's high-energy particle beams, but was pierced lightly by a red arrow. The arrow passed through his heavy armor and directly sank into his heart. Babulu was stunned for a moment, and then an indescribable taste emerged in his heart. Put down your weapons and don't resist. Yang Xinshin's voice passed through the narrow palace and reached Babulu's ears. His eyes were a little obsessed, but there was a trace of struggle in the confusion. Time, go back. The next moment, Yang Xinshin felt that the connection between herself and Babulu was broken. She frowned. Brother, my ability is ineffective. Zhang Yi chuckled, but his eyes became more fierce. Sure enough, after time goes back, everything will be reset, including the ability of the rule system will be erased. There is no way to do this. Yang Xinshin's arrows can change the other party's cognition and make the other party willingly obey her orders. However, it cannot change the other party's memory and ability. After Babulu realized that he was controlled, he immediately activated the ability of time reversal to offset Yang Xinshin's control. Chapter 1438 Time and Space versus Time and Space. Seeing that even Bug's rule-based ability could not defeat Babulu, Gao Chongkong and Lancelot began to become a little impatient. Although they didn't know what was happening in the high level of the Holy Spirit Temple at this time, they could sense the weird atmosphere here. Every extra second wasted here could bring them huge losses. Why is this guy so hard to kill? I don't believe he can. Lancelot's words were stuck in his throat halfway through. He wanted to say, I don't believe he can be so strong all the time. However, according to the opponent's ability, as long as he can't kill the opponent within a minute, he can always maintain his peak state. but the three of them can't do it at all. Zhang Yi slowly stood up and put away the huge sniper rifle. He knew that there was no point in continuing to fight like this. The longer the battle lasts, the more difficult it will be for them to kill General Babulu. If you still want to retain your strength now, you will never be able to defeat the enemy. I didn't like playing like this. Zhang Yi sighed, then looked at Hua at his feet and said, but now, we have to consider playing close combat with him. Hua responded with a meow. Then it spread its huge wings and rushed into the temple quickly. Gao Changkong and Lancelot looked at Zhang Yi and Hua, who joined the battlefield, knowing that Zhang Yi gave up long-range attacks and planned to fight in close combat. But Zhang Yi's close combat strength does not seem to be outstanding. Zhang Yi did not say much nonsense, and the sword in the tree in his right hand quickly spread a large number of vines, which spread directly along the walls and floors of the palace. He walked forward step by step, and the dark light in his left eye began to distort rapidly. Swamp of Time. As soon as his voice fell, a twisted force instantly burst out from him and enveloped the entire palace. Babulu frowned, and when this force hit him, he did not feel any discomfort in his body. But the next moment, two sharp sword winds suddenly attacked his neck and lower back. Babulu's pupils shrank slightly, and the coldness of the sword made the hairs on his body stand up. The ability of the Swamp of Time is to slow down the time of everything in a specific area with Zhang Yi as the center. Being in the Swamp of Time, Zhang Yi can decide who will be affected and who will not be affected. The affected people will not feel anything strange, and in his cognition, the flow of time is normal. But in the eyes of Zhang Yi and those who are not controlled by Zhang Yi's ability, the speed of other things will be slowed down by 30%. Just looking at the numbers, this is not a very exaggerated deceleration. But remember, this deceleration is calculated according to the proportion. So at this moment, for Babulu, the speed of everyone he faces has been greatly improved. So Gao Changkong and Lancelot's attacks have become faster and more fierce. Zhang Yi and Hua also joined the battle. At this time, Zhang Yi no longer has other concerns because he has thoroughly figured out the other party's ability. Before he activates his ability, I will remind you. Those who are reminded just need to stop in time. The only way Babulu can fight back now is to replace them in space to make them attack each other. But Zhang Yi could predict his actions 2 seconds in advance and warn others. This move made Babulu's ability ineffective. Sure enough, Babulu was 1 against 4 and was affected by the Swamp of Time and soon fell into a disadvantage. The heavy armor on his body was chopped by various weapons, leaving terrible wounds. He decisively activated his ability and exchanged positions with Zhang Yi when Gao Changkong stabbed with a sword. But Gao Changkong and Zhang Yi had already prepared. The moment Zhang Yi appeared in Babulu's position, the two of them changed the direction of attack at the same time and aimed their weapons at Babulu. The golden holy sword and the sword in the tree hit Babulu's body at the same time. His sudden attack was retribution to himself. He couldn't dodge for a while, but was blasted away. Go, strangle him. Zhang Yi controlled the sword in the tree, spreading endless green vines, surrounding Babulu from all directions. Thick vines entangled his body, and Babulu swung the battle axe in his hand vigorously. A powerful force burst out from his body, shattering these vines one after another. But the next moment, the 4 people's joint attack came again. Time rewind. Babulu had to use his time ability again because he couldn't stop the 4 people's attack with just a battle axe. His body was covered with scars and blood was pouring out. In an instant, he recovered as before. Can you last more than 60 seconds this time? Zhang Yi said coldly. The 4 powerful forces had already surrounded Babulu in the center. Gao Changkong and Lancelot were the main attackers. Zhang Yi mainly used the sword in the tree to trap Babulu and had used his ability to predict his movements, while Hua supported the attack. This time, Babulu's ability was completely exposed. Just like taking off all his clothes, he appeared in front of several people. His ability was broken, and he could no longer fight easily and comfortably, but it became more and more difficult. Facing 4 Ypsilons at the same time, He was able to hold on for so long, which was enough for him to be proud of. But the cold reality appeared before his eyes. Even the first general of the Nash kingdom with extraordinary ability could not reverse his fate of death. The cold weapons in the hands of the three people and Huahua's claws ruthlessly tore his body, making his 2 fists unable to fight against 6 hands and 4 claws. 52 seconds after the last use of Time Rewind, he was killed by the 4 people at the entrance of the Holy Spirit Temple. The sword cut his armor into pieces, revealing a 3-eyed body that looked unremarkable. There were thousands of scars on this body, and blood flowed down his thick legs like a spring. He did not fall down, but the battle axe in his hand fell heavily to the ground, and his eyes lost focus. Although they killed this enemy, Zhang Yi and others did not feel too relieved. Because killing him was too difficult. They left more than 100 horrific wounds on his vital parts before they completely eliminated Babulu. If they had given him a few more seconds to recover to his peak state, no one knew what the outcome would be. However, looking at the corpse of this black chariot-level alien, Lancelot's eyes were particularly excited. If this person's origin could be absorbed, then their strength would be greatly improved. Together with the origin of the kingdom's general that they had absorbed before, when they completely absorbed these powers, they would be able to reach the black chariot level without any accidents. However, there was only one origin, but there were 3 forces on the scene. How to divide it? Chapter 1439. Plan first, and then act. The gatekeeper of the Holy Spirit Temple, General Babulu, was finally killed. Although the process was a little difficult, it was successful in the end. No one could stop them from moving forward. However, after the common enemy was lost, the competition between them became obvious. General Babulu's origin is the origin of a black chariot-level alien, and everyone wants it. The 3 of them looked at each other, and even Huahua opened her eyes with different colors and squinted her eyes to look at the other 2. It doesn't seem to be the time for us to fight now,
Zhang Yi said lightly.
But who should his origin belong to? Lancelot showed a fake smile on his face. Gao Changkong smiled and said, "It's a pity that the origin of aliens is difficult to divide. Otherwise the problem would be easy to solve." Zhang Yi said, "That may not be the case." After this, Lancelot and Gao Changkong looked at Zhang Yi in surprise. Zhang Yi said, "The origin of aliens is essentially a special energy body. Of course, there are ways to store and divide it. There is an alien around me who has developed this technology." Zhang Yi was referring to Liu Karen's energy storage technology. This method was originally developed to accommodate the power of the spirit of the sacrifice. "Can you ensure that it is evenly divided into 3 parts?" Gao Changkong asked. At this time, Lancelot raised his right hand. "I can supervise this for you. Since it is an energy body, you only need to monitor the degree of energy reaction. We have this technology in Britannia." Zhang Yi glanced at him and thought, "What are you pretending in front of me? Even if we don't need that kind of technology, our instinctive judgment of the origin will not deviate too much. Besides, you said something wrong." Zhang Yi looked at Gao Changkong, smiled, and reached out to touch Huahua's head. "I have 2 parts here, so it needs to be divided into 4 parts. Gao Changkong and Lancelot looked at Zhang Yi with some jealousy. Ypsilon is now the world's top combat force, and the number of strong people in this aspect of human beings is probably less than 50. But Zhang Yi actually has a war beast of this level. It's really enviable. After their bargaining, since Huahua's ability index is only 13,000 points, the output is relatively small. So, in the final distribution plan, Zhang Yi took 40% of the share, and the other 2 took 30% each. Liu Karen was called out by Zhang Yi to be responsible for the collection and distribution of the origin. Seeing a capable girl with short hair running out of Zhang Yi's shadow, Gao Changkong and Lancelot were a little jealous again. Space-based ability users, it's so convenient. God knows how troublesome it is for them to run all the way here and carry a lot of supplies with them. Food, medicine, weapons, these things can only be carried by themselves. In order to save space to the maximum, the food they eat is all compressed, which can only provide energy and basically has no taste. Moreover, since they need to bring subordinates, they have to consider their safety. Look at Zhang Yi again. He can't wait to stuff his own house in and never needs to consider saving space. When in danger, just throw everyone into the space and it will be solved. The more the two people thought about it, the more uncomfortable they felt. Soon, Lu Karen completed the collection and division of the origin. 3 portions of the origin were placed in a specially made translucent jar. Zhang Yi threw the jar into the alien space and then turned his eyes to the closed door in front. Entering from here is the real way to the core area of the high-level Holy Spirit Temple. Let's go. We have been underground for so long, we should also go and see what kind of existence is in this Nash Kingdom's temple. Zhang Yi's tone was very serious. The mysterious pyramid under the Qinling Mountains emerged in his mind, and compared with this Holy Spirit Temple that was almost reaching the sky, he already had some guesses. Behind the crowd, the members of the Knights of the Round Table and Gu Man slowly walked over. Looking at the huge temple door, their eyes were both nervous and expectant. I always feel that there will be something very dangerous behind the door. Glorious night, Lon Malak said. Zhang Yi teased, if you're afraid, it's not too late to leave now. Lamarok's face condensed, and he said angrily, we have reached the final level. If we don't defeat the boss, it will be the biggest regret for the players. What are we waiting for? Let's go. Lancelot said, carrying his knight's 2-handed sword, and took the lead to walk towards the gate. Zhang Yi and Gao Changkong were unwilling to fall behind, and walked towards the gate step by step. In Zhang Yi's mind, he repeated the calculation results in his mind for the nth time. Since entering the Demon Abyss, I have calculated the strength of the Nash Kingdom. The reference for comparison is the mysterious snake tribe under the Qinling Mountains. In the Fog Valley Abyss, I have only seen the gatekeeper of the underworld, but not his tribe, so I can't make a clear comparison. When I encountered the Purple Pyramid, the guardians who appeared were all captain-level human-faced spiders. The white dragon who appeared later gave me the impression that he was at least a bishop-level inhuman with 30,000 points. But now that my strength is close to 20,000 points, I realize that his strength is definitely more than that. It has to be at least 40,000 points, or even higher, to reach the level that makes me completely unable to resist. Although the three-eyed people are powerful, ordinary three-eyed soldiers have the strength of ordinary members of the investigation team, but compared with the human-faced spider, the gap is too huge. Including the Ypsilon-level inhuman we met in Nash country, their strength is still at the chariot level. For any force, the strength of the strong will be distributed in a pyramid shape, layer by layer, and it is difficult for a strong person to lead by a huge gap because this is not logical. Therefore, the most powerful inhuman in Nash country is about 25,000 points. Taking into account substances like the spirit of sacrifice, it can only reach a level of about 30,000 points at most. And this level cannot be defeated by just a few of us. But so what? A strange arc appeared at the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. With these guys as cannon fodder, my ability is enough to support me to escape from this area. If things develop ideally, Luo Zhua successfully obtains the power of Tantra. Maybe I can get more things. The Tantra has been planning for 1,000 years. It is impossible that it is completely unprepared. So, the worst result is that they all die here today, and I escape alive. I don't mind dragging them down with me. Anyway, they can't run as fast as me. Zhang Yi looked around casually. The members of the Knights of the Round Table and Gao Changkong's pitiful duo had already been calculated by him. Chapter 1440, The New King. Everyone pushed open the heavy door. When the door opened, what appeared behind was not the magnificent palace, but a dark place. In the abyss-like scene, there was only a narrow white staircase, circling and spreading towards the sky. The depth was bottomless, and the height was unclear where it led to. But everyone had gone through so much hardship to get here, so they would not retreat. The three parties kept a certain distance, then stepped onto the white stairs, and quickly moved upward. Boom! The Holy Spirit Hall shook again, as if some terrible ancient creature was awakening, and the stairs under their feet were shaking. But everyone ignored it and continued to move forward firmly. Not long after, they finally reached the end, and the end of the stairs was a huge white platform. Zhang Yi and others looked up and saw two bronze doors with ferocious beasts carved on the other side of the white platform. A person in red appeared in their eyes. Zhang Yi remembered this figure. On the day of the prince's wedding, he had seen it from a high place. The huge, tall figure, wearing a gorgeous red wedding dress, was holding a strangely shaped weapon in front of everyone. Behind her, there were hundreds of warriors wearing dark silver armor. These people only took a glance and knew that they were the absolute elite of the Nash kingdom because there was nothing else in their eyes except the cold and ruthless murderous intent. The princess coldly glanced at the people who came here and had a bad idea in her heart. She didn't expect that these hairless mice that they treated as livestock could actually kill into the highest level of the Holy Spirit Temple. This also means that the guardians below, the 5 generals of the kingdom, were all defeated. She raised the sharp blade in her hand and pointed it at Zhang Yi and others, saying in a cold tone, "No matter what you guys are, today, I will never allow you to take a step forward."
The
300 elite warriors behind her smashed the weapons in their hands to the ground at the same time, making a deafening crash, and the momentum was terrifying. The monstrous murderous intent soared into the sky in an instant. If anyone wants to cross here today, they must first step on their corpses. "Sorry, we don't have time to waste here," Zhang Yi said coldly. He took a step forward and swung the sword in the tree in his hand. A huge half-moon-shaped blade light suddenly burst out from the tip of the blade, and the surging void power swallowed up the front like a huge sky monster. In just a moment, the huge white platform was completely swallowed by the power of the void. When the dark power slowly receded like a tide, the white platform became quiet. The figures of Princess Anlit and the 300 elites of the Nash kingdom no longer existed even as dust. "The idea is good, but it's too weak," Zhang Yi said lightly. Lancelot looked up at the huge bronze door. It was completely different from the other room doors in the Holy Spirit Temple. It was dark green, and it was engraved with hideous monsters that they had never heard of, and even mottled green rust could be seen. For some reason, it gave people a similar feeling to the Gate of Eternal Destruction.
It
was full of death, and people felt a chill in their backs at a glance, as if there were endless souls trapped in the bronze door. "Break the doors," Lancelot said. The 4 Ypsilons looked at each other. Without any hesitation, all burst out their power and rushed towards the bronze door. The 4 forces converged at one place, and the terrifying power made the whole palace tremble again. Boom! As their output power increased, the bronze door could not withstand such a strong force, and cracks began to appear inch by inch. Behind the bronze door, inside the huge red energy crystal, a pair of amber vertical pupils suddenly opened. After they rolled around for a while, they immediately burst out with a monstrous, murderous intent. Boom! A red energy burst out from his body, and the red crystals around his body also shattered in an instant. The red energy storm was like a storm, rushing straight into the sky. The dome made of barrier stone actually began to crack under the continuous impact of the red storm, and finally, click! It shattered completely. The whole palace shook even more violently, and even the white steps behind Zhang Yi and the others began to drop gravel. Hualala! As if unable to withstand such a powerful energy, the walls of the Holy Spirit Temple, which had existed for thousands of years, began to peel off in large pieces like an old house that was damp. Kacha! The clear sound of shattering reached everyone's ears. They felt the overwhelming murderous intent and the terrifying pressure that was enough to make their faces turn pale. Zhang Yi and others finally opened the bronze door and then walked in cautiously, holding their weapons. What remained in front of them was only a huge altar and broken and scattered red energy crystal fragments. The breath of the sacrificial spirit. Zhang Yi looked at the fragments and could still feel the remaining energy. According to his estimation, this piece of sacrificial spirit is many times larger than the one he absorbed at the beginning. At this moment, a beam of light shot down from above and landed on everyone's heads. Looking up, I found that a big hole had been opened in the dome of the Holy Spirit Temple at some point. And at the edge of the broken dome sat a three-eyed tribe member with a cold look. His body was only about 5 meters tall, which was considered to be a relatively short person among the three-eyed tribe. His well-proportioned body, without a trace of fat, was just like a bodybuilding champion, but his muscles were not exaggerated. If it hadn't been for years of training, it would be hard to imagine that a creature could have such a body shape. He sat on the high dome, with one arm casually resting on his bent knees, staring coldly at the people below. "He is the new king of Nash." Zhang Yi stared at him and said to the others around him in a deep voice. Everyone was as if they were facing a great enemy. They could feel the extremely terrible power from this person. Although he didn't make any movements, the energy contained in his body was like a human-shaped explosives depot that could explode at any time. Prince Amlet did not continue to look at Zhang Yi and the others, but cast his eyes towards the Nash kingdom below. At this time, the Nash kingdom was in ruins. Almost 1/3 of the city built on the spiral of the abyss was destroyed. The fire ignited by humans was still burning fiercely, and the smoke was everywhere. The wailing could be heard even from a distance. Seeing his country destroyed like this, Prince Amlet's face had no expression, and there was not even any emotional fluctuation in his eyes. After he absorbed the power of the sacrificial spirit, he only felt that his life level had been completely sublimated. At this moment, he was as powerful as a god, and he was already another kind of transcendent existence. The life and death of ordinary people, even the death of his own princess and his generals, could not hide his own joy. So, this is the life level that our ancestors once reached? His shoulders suddenly shook violently, and the corners of his mouth were almost pulled to the back of his ears, revealing an extremely weird smile. It's really too wonderful. Dear viewers, this video ends here. If you like the story, please like and comment. Thanks.